Right, the glue has set pretty well, and the glue on the tail wheel has set as well, so we now have ourselves a rolling aeroplane. Cool. Next job is the wings, and the wings are these. They're coloured both sides, and first job is to score them so as they fold down the middle to form the aerofoil, and score the ailerons so as they can hinge. When you cut these, cut quite tight, as you're left with a little nodule which you've got to sort of remove. Let's just pop the other one out. Use the little screwdriver they gave you, and there's a line there, very thinly printed, scored in I should say, and another one at the back of the aileron there, which goes all the way down to there. And I would suggest a straight edge on that, because you're not going to be able to do that by hand without it moving off track a little bit. So just get it set up the right distance. You've got to be quite brutal really. Little tip, don't go right to the very edge, just stop slightly short and then lighten it slightly. Same with the bottom edge, because if you keep the pressure up right to the tip, your chances are you'll go right through and it'll crack. Where are we? From there to there. I must say the instructions actually are really good on this. Really good English. Same with the aileron. Try not to go right to the very edge. Just, you can, but go very lightly. Right, see what we've got there. The aileron. I'll go a little bit deeper there. Hold it up at more of an angle. That's better. You'll be amazed. These don't break. These hinges don't break. They just... I've never had one break yet. And the aerofoil section. Like that. So I'll do the other one. Okay. Wings cut out. We go on to number 43. Place carbon fibre rods on the bottom of the wing along the marked line to increase strength. Right, we've got 4 pieces, 2 of which will probably be push rods for the rudder and elevator, so we'll put those up. Good, my little. Right, so starting at the root, pop that in there like that. And then you can't put it in actually because it will push it out, but can you put it in? You'd have to make a bigger hole if you were to put it in. It's there just to reinforce the wing. So I'm just going to see if I can get it a little bit flusher, which means making a little bit more of a groove. Let's just see if I can. Let's make it a little bit wider. This time I'm using the full width of the screwdriver. Oh, yeah, it's a screwdriver. That sits down a little bit deeper. Yep, and it bends into the aerofoil, so I'll do the same on this one. Just an inch past that. Now, that has to glue in there, and then we're going to fix the wings to the fuselage. Actually, look at that. Look at what they say. I've actually gone quite hard on there. Let's put a little line on the top of that, but on this one I've actually gone through. So fortunately for me, I will be gluing this in and that will repair, but go very steady there then. Just crack the top skin there, so something to be aware of. And then when these are glued in, they go straight on the model. So what I'll do while the glue is still wet, so let's just do a dummy run here. What needs to actually be glued and what doesn't. Oh, look at that, look how well that fits. Can you see that? Just go straight in there. That's absolutely superb. This kit, this model is so well designed and fitted out. To always do a dry run, make sure things are where they should be. They should be. Yeah. Okay. Oh, first glance of it with its wings on, fantastic. Does skin up pretty quick. Lick my finger just to stop my fingers sticking to it. Right, that's going to turn. So as it turns, it's going to push out a little bit, I reckon. So what I think I might try is just let that go off just a little tiny bit. Okay, how's this one doing? Yeah, it's staying in the groove now, which is cool. Should I have done some in there? I think I should. Which wing is this? That's that one. Exciting times. So I'm just going to do what I just said. Just try and get a small amount of glue in there, just to give that a little bit of strength. Like that. Now, I'll put glue on here. Down to there. Up there. What's there? On the sides of there, and the bottom. On the top. Okay, and straight in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Not quite staying down onto the back of the nacelle there, so I'm just going to hold that for a second. So we'll do the other side. I want to do this while that glue is still a little bit tacky in there, just so as it can move around a little bit. It's popped off the nacelle that side as well, so I'm just going to hold this now until the glue dries enough to let it go. Right, we'll let that set and I'll come back to it and do the next part, which is going to be, oh yes, install and glue on the wing root the little triangular pieces that go in down here. That's the only bits of the left to cut out now, these bits here. I'll do that and I'll come back to you. Next item on the instructions, oh yes, apply the decals to the motor components, which is these bits here. Now they have to wrap around and get rid of all this horrible white. So, which goes a bit on the top. That's your top piece. There's a hole in the middle where the goes around the motor. So I'll lift that out now, like that. Let's put that there. And in theory, it'll start there. Well, it won't start there. It wraps up over the wing. Ah, it's in 2 bits. That's okay. That makes life a little bit easier, doesn't it? Let's do this one. So that goes over the front of the motor, like that, and then bends down the length of the nacelle and over the top of the wing, like that. Now it's not sticking so well to the plywood there, not sure why. You can always put a little bit of glue under it if you need to. Go along there, see what happens. This is actually a contact glue, so you can let it pop off, let it set for a second and then put it back on, and hopefully it will stay. Okay, I think that's going to do it. So be very careful of the motor prop shaft, which is still free to turn. This one here will go, guessing with the air vents at the back, or do they go with the air vents at the front? They do go with the air vents to the front, so they're not vents, they're intakes. So this one here will go from there around to there. When these stickers are actually fitted and on, they actually stick very, very well. They don't really come off at all. Okay, so you end up with something like that, which looks pretty good, I think. I think it does, and that's sticking nicely now. So it's slightly too wide on that edge, so I think I might just run the scalpel down there to get it off. And over the top. Just stick it down with the knife blade. I'm going to try and find some red paint just to paint in all this, so that's not the end of the world. Stick in the elevator and rudder control horns, which I've already done while it was easy to do. I need to connect up the control surfaces from the servos, which are these two here, one there and one there, because the aileron control surfaces are tucked down inside there, which will be a little bit more challenging to get to, but not that difficult. The other thing I'll need to do is to stick in the aileron control horns. Now I'm going to do that now before I start putting in the control arms rods for the elevator and rudder, because I want these to be set by the time I come down to doing the aileron ones. And the slots are good tight fit and you will crush the foam, so what I like to do is just put a little file, a little, almost a point on those, just to help it into the hole without damaging the foam. And it's important to get them facing forward, not backward, but it won't matter if I face them backwards, just to make that hole a little bit bigger. I'm supporting it underneath with my finger as well. You see how much easier this would be to do before you glue the wing in. Do the peg and then just up under slightly, because you're gluing it to the printed surface, which isn't as good as the foam. Fiddly diddly. Okay, that goes in there, like that. See what I mean? So that can be set in now while I work on the push rods. So I'll do the other one. I'll be right back. These little bits here which fit over the servo. These little bits here which go into the control horns. These are your adjusters if you need to. You squeeze them together or pull them apart a bit to set it. And heat shrink tube, which is this piece here. So we cut these down to, they say, 5mm lengths. I'm going to cut it down to a little bit longer because I want to make sure this isn't going to move. So I'm going to make it about 7mm on there. This is what I'm guessing. Don't put it all the way on, leave a bit sticking out, and then you can put that up the side. Be careful of that, it's like a pin, so it'll just go straight into your fingertip if you let it. I think I might try a pair of pliers on there just to ease it down. That heat shrink is a very, very small diameter, and even the instructions don't show it on very far. If you push too hard, you'll actually push it through the plastic, but I think that's as far as I'm going to get. So it's one end on. The other end's a little bit easier because it's not two pieces of wire. But again, leave a little bit sticking out because it makes it easy to thread that in and then up the side. And then you can pull it down. Again, I can't use my pliers. Just to pull the heat shrink back down or push it down. Push it, there we go. That goes onto there. So just going to check. Yeah, they actually put this bit on the model first, on the horn, but if you do that, you saw how hard it was to push it in. So, and they recommend the outer hole, so we'll see, won't we? So that goes in, that's on the rudder, the outer hole. It goes through there, twist it around the bend. It hangs down like that. Now we'll see how accurate these are cut. Okay, so they need to be trimmed down a bit, I reckon, because that is 4mm, 1/8 inch or so. Knowing how hard that one was, let's see if I can do it on this end. I think the easiest thing to do would be to take that off again. So it's got to be 4mm, which is about that distance. So if I can push that down as far as it will go, that would be about right. There we go. Oh, that's actually was pretty easy. Okay, that should be about right. Any fine tuning, I can squeeze that up slightly. So, okay, let's just pop that back in there. Bring it over the front. Don't forget this is heat shrink tubing, so it's got to be heat shrunk yet. And that looks pretty much spot on. So that needs to be turned. Okay, I'm happy with that. So what we'll do, we'll just take that off one last time. And we'll heat shrink that on with my... You could heat shrink it on with a soldering iron tip, being very careful not to knock the fuselage. Or you can do what I'm about to do. And there's a little precaution if you want to put a small a blob of CA just on the ends, just to hold it. Right, that's the rudder push rod made up. I'm going to clip it in place. Finally, we'll connect it up to the servo. It goes in there, give it a turn, bring it around. The easiest way to put these in is to push it up on the one that's hanging down. I'm describing that very well. Push it up and drop it in like that. So there's one push rod made up, and that rudder looks pretty square to me. So I'll do the elevator push rod, and then we'll probably have to look at the aileron push rods, which come out at 45 degrees. Okay, that went a little bit better than the rudder one, so that's connected in. Next job is the ailerons. A little bit fiddlier possibly. I was just looking at the instructions, actually. They say you might need to trim down the carbon rods, but mine were okay, so not too much of a problem. Right, okay, turn it. Okay, that was okay, just. And then the servo end, might have to use some tweezers on this, I think. Pop that in there, get a pointy pair of tweezers, grab hold of that spring bit, see if you can bend it. Done it. Okay. Right, that won't come off now because that springy bit is the other side of the bit going down. Right, now the next thing to do, to turn that around. See how tight that is on there. Let me just move it back a bit. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's as simple as that. I'm going to heat up the end of this tweezers and then just sort of grip it, and we'll see if it sort of shrinks it a bit. The other thing I can do is to put on some CA. Okay, so that's one aileron connected up. I'll do the other one and I'll be back in an hour. Okay, so I've connected up the other one. I just thought I'd see how things were working. So here's the battery connected. Oh, sorry, disconnected it. That's not the battery connected. See, supplied battery connected. Okay, ailerons. As you can see, it works quite well. Elevator and rudder. That doesn't work quite as well because there's no hinge at the bottom. I'm wondering if I can add a little hinge in there. I'm thinking, you know, just looking at that, a small piece of fishing line glued in behind the tail wheel and onto the bottom of the rudder. I know it's not a primary control surface. I think that will help, maybe later. But I have noticed that the bits sticking down are rubbing on the wing slightly, so I've just got to relieve that. Just carving off a very small amount of foam just so as it doesn't bind. That will do very nicely. So that's the control horns fixed up, guys. DG. Centre of gravity is located at the front score line of the upper wing. The active range of ailerons elevated with 5mm on both sides. Choose long grass for maiden flight. Good idea. So let's put the battery and have a look at the centre. Oh no, let's put the props on first. The other thing they haven't told you to do is to connect up the motors to the little connector on the inside, so I've got that little fiddly thing to do. So I've got a 2-into-1 connector. That looks pretty much spot on, doesn't it? So that's good news. So as I say, I'll do all those little bits and pieces and we'll come back to you and have a look at the model. Cheers guys. Well, I've plugged the 2 motor wires into the adapter. I've gone to start with the blues on one side and the reds on the other. Might have to disconnect that and turn it around, I don't know. I have to see. There's no instructions on that. And then this adapter turns and fits into the outlet on down there. Again, there's no indication as to which way round it goes. I think the wire could have been a little bit longer actually, just to make life slightly easier here. If either that or the wire the hole would have been better off further forward nearer the leading edge, because I've got to go back and then forward again, whereas if it was nearer the leading edge I could just go straight across. I might have to disconnect that and put a hole further forward. Let's see, pared down to the minimum length you could possibly do it. I'm going to do that, you know. I'm going to make holes further forward because that's just making life so difficult for myself. Let's take that off. I need to point out to you the little block on the inside. The plug from each motor goes into the adapter. You've got one blue wire, one red wire. On mine, the blues and red are opposite each other, so I've got a blue and a red going into the adapter one side and a blue and a red going into the adapter the other side, so they're opposite, and in that way the motors spin contra-rotating, which is what they need to do. So by putting these little holes gave me enough cable to actually allow me to turn it around and plug it in, and I can still get the battery up the side. So there we are. That's what you need to do. Put some holes further forward, about 13 millimeters, say ½ an inch, and you're away, but you want to keep them inside the leading edge, else you don't want to see them from above. So there you are. That's the electronics sorted. The motors just whir nicely, which is very nice. I've got the battery back on charge so as I can get some decent RPM going. It's a 260 milliamp hour battery, which is okay. I'm not entirely sure this sticky pad is going to be sufficient to hold things in long term, because obviously the sticky pad is going to become less sticky the more times I do it. On previous models I've built from MinimumRC, they've had a little magnet here, so I might end up installing a small magnet, but I'm going to find some red paint now and finish that off. But otherwise it's finished, ready to go, and looking really, really smart, and quite a quick build and most enjoyable. So I'm really looking forward to the test flight. Comment on a community post I put up showing it was it's going to look great going around the pole, and yes it is. It's going to look spectacular going around the pole, so looking forward to that. So there we are guys, that's how you build the MinimumRC DH88 kit. That's how I build it. The instructions online are really, really clear, very nicely written. A couple of small areas which aren't covered, like for instance connecting up the motor, but it's obvious really, you would think. And yeah, it balances where it should balance. My kit didn't have the 2 glues, the foam glue and the CA, so if yours doesn't, you're going to have to obviously supply that. The only problem area I had was in this nacelle. When I built it, the plywood parts, they weren't quite square, and therefore the nacelle was pointing in towards the fuselage a little bit, so I've had to file it out slightly, but apart from that, this one just clipped on lovely. So thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed it, and if you want to see the maiden flight, then hit the subscribe button as well. Cheers, bye.